Welcome to Love Being Podcast. I am Dr. Isela Garcia, and in this episode, I'm going to share my next installment of my spiritual awareness.
Welcome to Love Being, where we embrace our experiences as spiritual opportunities to deepen our understanding of who we truly are. We are love.
Several months ago, I sent out a newsletter about my brand new podcast, and I was super excited about launching that. And then I kind of stopped after the first episode with plans to create more episodes, but I just want to share with you what happened. So, the last several months, I have been on this deep dive in understanding myself, the nature of reality, who we truly are. Now, I'm going to share a little bit with you about this journey, and I'm going to unpack this a little more as we continue along this journey together. But what I want to say is nothing that I'm going to share with you or that anyone shares with you is 100% true or accurate. These are all our own experiences and what really deeply resonates with each one of us. And so what I have been doing is what I call sort of the unearthing or the uncovering of what gets in the way of us being able to access our deepest, most inner wisdom. Now, we cannot have an objective perspective of our reality. We cannot have an objective perspective of consciousness or that which many of us call God. There is no way that we can have an objective understanding of any of our experiences because everything we experience moves through a lens of our understanding, our perceptions, our sensations, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. So there is no objective lens when it comes to understanding our knowing. And so this unraveling, and this is what I've been calling it, is an unraveling into the deeper, I don't want to say deepest because I'm not there 100% yet, but a deeper level of understanding who we are as awareness. And I'm still actually in the space of, I guess, reconciling some of the things that I believed to be true in terms of my spiritual awareness and development, and what I'm now uncovering. And I've been taking a pause in sending emails out and doing my podcast sessions because I really needed to feel a bit more settled in what I have been uncovering. Now, I believe that everything that we come to know comes through a deeper level of resonance, that we have to be connected to our physical form in order to get that sensation, that understanding, that knowing that this resonates at a deeper level for me. And as I've worked at really tapping into that part of myself, there are things that have started to sort of come to me by way of teachers, and in some cases, things that I have read, and in my own quiet contemplation, in my own meditation and prayer, things have sort of come to me. And I am working on making sense of it all without getting too caught up in the thought process. And part of this journey for me has been coming to the awareness and understanding at a deeper level that Nothing I say and nothing that anyone says is 100% accurate or true. What we do is we sort of gather information, maybe see things from a different perspective or through a different lens, and we work on connecting with that part within us that goes, does this resonate? Does this feel right? Does this feel good? And every single one of us is going to have a different experience. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that and to honor those varied experiences. One of the things that I've really been studying is the lens and the perspective of a non dual experience of life, this non duality. And as I delve deeper into this non duality, some of the things that I have believed in spiritually have come into question. And so for me, it's really about sitting with my knowing and allowing myself to just simply be in the experience without intellectualizing the experience, which many of us do. Okay. So as I've been going through this process, I've often thought about it as an unraveling. Now, this is a ball of yarn, and I think there's actually a fancier word for this, but well, a ball of yarn. And I have lots of yarn like this. I'm a wannabe knitter. I know how to crochet, but not very well. So it's like one of those things that I like to do because I get into like a very meditative state when I do it. So I have lots of these. And as I was thinking about this journey and the journey of others that I have supported or have guided in some way, shape, or form, I now kind of think of it as the unraveling of a ball of yarn. Now, if you can see that there are lots of different colors to this ball of yarn. And I believe that every one of us is consciousness. We're the manifestation of consciousness. Now, consciousness is is what I call God, all that is. That simply is. God doesn't ask for praise because that's an egoic perspective. God is not wanting even gratitude because, again, that's an egoic perspective. God simply is. Consciousness simply is. It's never changing. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't fluctuate. It just simply is. We are the manifestation of consciousness. So we are basically, and I want to say the vehicle, but it we're the agency by which consciousness experiences itself. Okay. Now, consciousness is an infinite, and I don't like to use the term being, but for lack of a better word, it's the infinite. It's all that is. And we are in consciousness experience of itself. And this is where a lot of us who studied A Course in Miracles will say that this is the dream. This is the dream or the illusion. Now, the illusion doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means that it's appearing as something that it is not. So it's showing up as something that it isn't. That's what an illusion is. And so the dream that many of us as Course in Miracles students and A Course of Love students refer to as this is a dream or a hologram that we're experiencing is basically just consciousness is experiencing itself through us. Through us. And so at the deepest level of who we are consciousness. And that's all we are is consciousness. but we are having this experience. And so, where we begin, going back to my ball of yarn here, where we begin, kind of imagine that this is me, this is you. And we almost always, at least in my experience, start from this place of what I call victim awareness, where bad things happen, right? Bad things happen to me. Bad things happen to you. Even though I'm working really hard to be a good person, why do shitty things keep happening to me, right? And so we come from this place of what I call victimness, right? I had a really shitty experience as a child. My husband was horrible to me. My kids are disrespectful to me. I have a horrible boss. Things are just really shitty. And so we get into the habit, and really it is habit. And I think our culture plays a significant part in this, where we see things from a place of bad things happening to her, or even good things, but things happen to us. And we really don't understand the power that we have to actually create our experience of life, or even how we perceive the experiences we are having, because our perceptions are pretty critically important. And so that's always the beginning for all of us. That's always the beginning for all of us, where we go, oh, I really don't like having this experience of life here. I think I want to do something different. Well, what would that different look like? And what would I need to do to have that experience that's going to be different? What are the things that are getting in the way of me experiencing those things? And then we come to a realization that a lot of that, the bulk of it, is our beliefs and how that impacts our thinking, and how that impacts our feelings, and how that impacts our energy, the frequency by which our energy emits, right? And so we start to see how those things are all interconnected. The other thing that I think is critically important in this journey is, and I think this is especially true for those of us who grew up with trauma, generational trauma and trauma. And I have to tell you that most of us, especially if you're my age or older, grew up with trauma. Even though you may have had loving experiences of life, you may have had parents who loved you, and you believed that you were loved like all of the time, because I've had this conversation with many people. Um, I think that there was an unawareness that's getting better now. And so back then there just was an unawareness of what children need as human beings having this experience of life. And so some of that unawareness is that children need to feel safe. They need to feel connected. They need to feel loved. They need to feel seen, and they need to feel heard. And those are the things that, parents just didn't prioritize in generations past. And so the priorities were, you were fed and you were clothed and you have a house over a roof over your head. And, those were the things that were prioritized, not the well-being, the emotional well-being of a person. It wasn't a priority. It wasn't even a priority in the relationships between the adults at the time either. And so, having not had those experiences of feeling safe, loved, connected, and emotionally, not just physically, but emotionally safe by the caregivers who surround you, that you were impacted, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. Um, I forget what teacher I've had recently have said, we were all born into trauma. We were all born into trauma. And what happens to a lot of us in the spiritual community, those of us who are like, I'm just going to use words that have been used a lot in spiritual communities: seeking enlightenment, wanting to awaken. That what happens is we often want to skip over being connected to our physical form. We want to skip over that part and get to the part that helps us feel, good, helps us feel connected to God, helps us feel all of the things that helps us forget about what pain we may have experienced in our lives. Okay. And so when we skip over that, what we're really doing is we're dismissing our connection to a physical form, or we're dismissing our emotional state. And I will tell you that we can intellectualize our entire spiritual journey. We can intellectualize our entire healing journey. You can think about it. You can do the thought work. You can do the reprogramming of the brain work. You can do all of those things. You can even manifest from the level of the intellect and completely ignore the connection to your physical form. And why is this important? Well, your physical form is basically like a satellite dish. And this physical body that we are in, illusion or not, dream or not, it's the experience that we are having. It helps us send and receive messages. It helps us understand what is it that we're experiencing. And so when we can drop into that just a little bit, just to get a sense of what am I experiencing and allowing it to move through us. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple little, lack of a better way to say it, little tricks of the trade so that you can start to become more and more connected to your physical body. But see, most of us have been teaching ourselves how to switch right away, switch out of what we're feeling, switch out of what might be showing up as a sensation that might be uncomfortable to us. Like we have trained ourselves because it is a spiritual teaching that has been going around for a very long time. The moment you start to feel a little dysregulated, the moment you start to feel a little bit of those feelings that may be of the ego, which I also call the intellectual self, of our separated self, we want to switch gears, and we might use terms like, what voice am I listening to, so that I can switch quickly out of it. Now, there's nothing wrong with shifting out of it to look at the perspective differently. But what happens sometimes is we dismiss the sensations that are coming up within us. Now, it's not a big deal if it's not a big deal. But sometimes these sensations that are coming up for us have been around for a really long time. They may be a part of us when we were children, let's say, where we were not heard, or where we were not seen, or our ideas were not valued, or somebody was trying to take some power or control away from us. And so what happens when we're in a conversation or an interaction with somebody, and a sensation like that shows up where you might be activated, even if it's just a little bit, you have grown in awareness to be aware, whoa, I'm starting to feel a little off kilter. I'm uncomfortable with that. So I'm going to shift my thoughts immediately. And I'm going to shift gears very quickly so I can dismiss those negative experiences, those negative things that are tied to the ego, because that's one of the things that we have believed in from a spiritual perspective. So we're going to shift out of that, and we're going to go right into thinking something better, something more positive, something more aligned with spirit. So we shift out, and our bodies are going, whoa, wait a minute. I wasn't done with that just yet. And so what's important about moving out of, remember I talked about victim awareness, right? Shifting out of victim awareness isn't just shifting out of things happening to me, but it's understanding that we have more than just our thinking processes. We have our physical form to help us navigate through those experiences. It helps us understand the what, the how, the why, and the when. And I will tell you that as you begin this unraveling process, that becomes less important, but it's sort of a journey. And so, just like going back to this, so we've got to find the end here, right? We've got to find like, where do we begin? And sometimes that beginning piece, it's the dark night of the ego. And I call it of the ego because the soul, the soul is the separated self, by the way. The soul is the separated self. And there's nothing wrong with the separated self. Where it goes a little wonky is that we believe that we're independent of consciousness. We have our own thoughts, we have our own ideas, we have our own perceptions, we have our own sensations, we have our own beliefs, we have all of these things that are separate from God, consciousness. And that's where it goes all wonky, is that belief. Instead of the knowing that I am is simply the declaration of being, just being. And consciousness is simply being. Okay. But this is our perception of our reality. And so we have to figure out, where the hell do I start? Right? Where the hell do I begin with this? And so you've got to dig deep and look. I think I may have found a way. Okay. And all of us have our own way in the beginning, right? For me, it was finding a therapist to kind of figure out, why the heck do I feel this way? Help me understand the impact of the trauma I experienced. Help me know what I'm supposed to do with this. How do I change my life? And so what we start to do is we start to unravel, right? We start to unravel. And, I've often referred to this as the onion. It's the unlayering of the onion. But I really like this idea. It's so funny how things will just come to you when you ask more clarification. And so what happens is we keep unraveling and unraveling. And sometimes, and I'm going to kind of ravel this back up, because this journey does get a little challenging, but the unraveling helps us delve deeper into understanding our separated self as an independent individual. And I think we all start there. All of us start there. We have to get to know the ego. We have to become in union with the ego. We have to not see the ego as our enemy, but rather a part of this collective experience that we are having. And so as we continue to unravel and unravel, what you will notice is that the colors will start to change. And the color will start to change. And that's when your experiences will start to shift. You'll begin to recognize that you have the power to be able to change your perspectives. You have the power to change your perceptions. You have the power to connect to the sensations within the body. And by connecting to them, you give them voice, and you also give them the opportunity to just release. There are so many people that I have known for many, many years that have been on a spiritual journey for a very long time. And what I mean by spiritual journey is that they chose to move away from sort of religious practices, religion in general, to really move into the journey of understanding their own personal relationship with God, whatever that looks like. And I know a lot of people who've been doing it for a very, very long time. And they continue to say to me, I'm still struggling with my relationship with so-and-so. I still don't feel happy. I feel like there's still something missing. Or I fill my life with so many things to do that I don't know what to do when I have to slow down. It's like all of these things are indications that there are some things still left undone. There are things that are still left unhealed. Another thing that I have recently said to folks is that I believe, I'm a strong believer, that my ability to connect to those who have crossed over, to angels and guides, is something that every single person can do. And I will tell you that as I've worked one-on-one with folks about really tapping into their intuition and tapping in to the nature of who they truly are, it comes down to one major thing that gets in the way. Most people who are trying to move into their intuition or into mediumship or connecting from beyond is that they're doing it from an intellectual state of being. And the act of simply trying is the opposite of being. In order for us to access that state of being, we also have to have healed the parts within us that get in the way of us being able to access our intuition consistently and with accuracy. Because we are intellectualizing the experience. And as we are in form, we have lots of our experience. This, as we are in form, we have this entire experience that we get to use in order to access our divine wisdom, our inner wisdom, or to simply connect with the awareness that we are, the awareness of consciousness. And so this unraveling, I have to tell you, I've been unraveling for 30 years. Over 30 years, I've been unraveling and exploring these concepts because I have always been a person who really enjoys the exploration of reality, of who we are, and the connection to this deeper level of awareness. It's always been, since I was very young, it's something that I have always been highly interested in. And what I have come to understand in the last several months, as I sort of disappeared and gone into my own deeper level of contemplation and understanding, is that the unraveling for most of us is really critically important. It's a critical part of our journey because we have to wonder about our patterns, our beliefs, how our culture, how society plays a part in our identity. And we have to start to understand our attachment to all of those things. The attachment we have to our identity, the attachment we have to our cultural influences, the attachment we have to our experiences of life, the attachment we have to the people that we engage with day to day, the attachment we have to our own selves. We have to move through this journey of understanding this. And there comes a point where we can look at this and recognize it as simply an experience. All of the people and the things, the objects, the relationships are all simply an experience that we are having. And it's the journey into trying to find happiness, love, and ourselves. But if we were able to, and I don't know anyone who is personally who is able to simply just see it as an experience, and that at the deepest level of who we have always been joy, we've always been love, we've always been peace, and we've always been the things that we are unraveling the yarn, unraveling our life to learn how to be. But we've always been, because I'm going to go back to my original statement. We are the manifestation of consciousness. And as the manifestation of consciousness, we are automatically love. We are automatically happiness. We are automatically belonging and beauty. We are automatically those things. And we have simply forgotten. We've just simply forgotten that. And so the unraveling for most of us is necessary. It's a necessary part of our journey. And so when I have conversations with people who are in the spiritual community, who've been doing lots and lots of phenomenal work for years and years and years, and say to me, I'm still stuck and I'm not feeling happy and I'm not feeling these things. And I feel like I'm having to da 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 da. All of those things are simply experiences that you are having. To what end? What is it that you're wanting? And 9 times out of 10, it's love, it's peace, it's happiness. And when we understand that that's the nature of our reality, that's who we truly are, then what happens is we move from that space of being love. But it's no longer about, and I'm going to use me as an example, it's no longer about me, Isela, showing up in the world and, like being the awakened one and being the enlightened one to share things, the light worker who's going to help all these people. Because that perspective in itself is part of the separated perspective, part of the separated self, who sees themselves as independent of consciousness. That makes sense? So I do say I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, and I'm an intuitive trauma healing guide. And so are you. So are you. We all are. And when I show up for you, you actually are showing up for me. There's a reciprocity in our exchange and in our interactions with one another. And it's important for us to know that. It's important for us to know that there isn't one of us that is more enlightened or more special or more anything than someone else. Each one of us have a different level of awareness and understanding, but those are based on our own perceptions of our reality. When we lean back a little bit further and we align with the awareness of being, we are all exactly the same. Exactly the same. So that's sort of the journey I've been taking. And I'm less interested in showing up in the world as some awakened individual who has all the answers. And I'm more interested in helping you uncover what is getting in the way of you being able to access your inner wisdom. I'm more interested in understanding our oneness and honoring who we each are as individuals, but more importantly, as a significant part of the collective experience that we are having.
If this resonates with you, I invite you to follow this podcast and come on over to one of the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook group where I do free live readings on a regular basis. I'm also on Instagram and on TikTok, and I would love to connect with you. I am continually developing courses and online workshops where we really truly create a community to help you feel, number one, a sense of belonging, and number two, free to be able to work through your experiences of life as you embrace your sacred journey.